Thank you. And friends, at this time we are going to begin the funeral of Richard Sylvan. Again, as a final gentle reminder, if you have a cell phone or a pager, please take a moment to turn it off or place it in the silent mode. And at this time we will begin with members of the United States Navy. Thank you.
Armor, attention, punch, post. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for having us today. It is our great honor to be here. If you are physically able to comfortably stand, we ask that you please rise for military honors. If you have served, we invite you to join us in rendering a final salute when taps is sounded. Bugler, sound taps.
Aye, sir.
Thank you. You may be seated. Sir, on behalf of the President of the United States Navy, and the grateful nation, please accept this flag in recognition of his honorable and faithful service.
Bruchim Habaim, welcome.
as we're here today to honor an incredible person who has served his country and has served his family and has served so many people on this earth through his and his love. As we're here to remember and honor our beloved Richard Sylvan, we begin today with a ritual called Kriya, which means tearing, because our hearts are torn to have to say goodbye to such an incredible person. So I invite those who have the Kriya ribbons to join me and Cantor Lori in the front of the room here for a brief ceremony. Blessed are you, O God.
Blessed are you, O God,
Who judges in truth.
who judges in truth. Amen.
We say this because this is our truth. The truth we choose, but the truth we have to accept. And that's why our hearts are torn. This truth. So we invite you now to take the ribbon and the honor and afterwards back further way up to show how our hearts are torn.
The teeth.
Since there are no words that can express how much we're torn, that's why we do this. The strength for this ceremony, we're going to invite you to give one another hugs to express yourselves in ways that you can.
Thanks.
When we were talking the other day about your father, you shared so many incredible stories. And I found this poem that really spoke to me about the person that you were describing. And I think the person that many of us in this room knew. Edmund Hatch wrote, "For me to have left one soul, the better for my birth. To have added but one flower to the garden of the earth, to have struck one blow for truth in the daily fight with lies, to have done one deed of right in the face of calamities, to have sown in the souls of men and women one thought that will not die, to have been a link in the chain of life, this shall be my immortality." We're remembering a person who has added more than just one soul, one thought that has left our one soul better. We're remembering somebody who has over 72 patents to his name because of his drive to make things better for others. No matter what stage in life he was in, he was always thinking about how he could make something better, to move something a little bit more advanced so that life could be better for others around him. He was one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Everybody said he had not a bad bone in his body. We're here to remember him, the person who will have an immortal legacy in our hearts. Our father, grandfather, uncle, cousin, friend, the most interesting man in the world, Richard Sylvan. As we try to comprehend what it means to have him in memory alone in our lives, it is hard to find words that can truly express how we feel. And so we turn to the words of our Psalms, not to find words that will make everything better, but words that can express a little bit of the hope that we have for his soul and for ours. And so we call upon Cantor Lori Akers to share with us the words of Psalm 23.
Adonai Rohi lo exai, Binor tesher bitzini, Armei manuchot, in aleni. Nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek, yancheni b'maglei tzedek, למען שמו. גם כי ילך בגיץ על מוות לא ירא, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי. דשנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה. הטוב והחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אכסה.
We read together in the inside of our packets. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God maketh me to lie down in green pastures. God leadeth me beside the still waters. God restoreth my soul. God leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for God's name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of God forever. Amen. These are our prayers for Richard's soul, that he is now at peace and being protected by God in the house of God. And it is our responsibility to lift up the memory of the ways in which he brought goodness to this world through words of chesped, words that honor and lift up all of the gifts that he has brought. And we know that so many of his grandchildren are here. You were beyond the light of his life. You made so many wonderful memories for him, and he has given you so many memories. And to know your grandfather as adults is such a special gift. And so we're going to give his grandchildren the chance to share some of their memories and reflections, beginning with Justin, who will share on his behalf and on behalf of his sister Jennifer. Jess.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. My sister couldn't be here today, but I'm going to read a little speech from her and then share a couple words of my own. Grandpa, I miss you and I love you so much. He always made sure to show how proud he was of his grandkids and his great-grandkids. He was so excited every time we gave him pictures of the great-grandkids. He proudly displayed them around the house and on his fridge. He was always so supportive of me with my teaching career. During my sister's first year teaching, a student wrote her a beautiful letter. When my grandpa saw it, he made a copy of it, framed it, and put it on a wall in his downstairs bathroom. The downstairs bathroom happened to be a great spot for all of the grandkids' artwork. And she will forever remember that gesture. Our grandpa was extremely talented. In 1993, when my sister was about 3, he built her a beautiful wooden dollhouse. The attention to detail on this was amazing. He put an engraved plaque that mentioned her name and his name. When her daughter Madison was born, he made repairs on the 30-year-old dollhouse and made her a special plaque dedicating the dollhouse to her as well. The dollhouse was my sister's favorite toy to play with, and she can't wait for this memory to live on through Madison playing with it. Grandpa, she said, I will always cherish that special house. We adored getting to see you for family holidays. We'll miss your smiling face at the next event. We're so thankful that her kids, Madison and Dylan, got to meet you and spend time with you. And can't wait to show them more of your amazing artwork, tell them about your Navy experiences, and show them all the pictures. Dylan absolutely loved telling people that his great-grandpa was in his 90s. He thought it was so cool. Me too. Grandpa, we're so proud of you, of all the hard work and accomplishments in your life, and we love you forever. I wanted to say that I thought it was amazing how my grandpa was able to raise 3 kids and raise them to be great human beings and great parents and pass on all of his values to them and his calm demeanor and good attitude. And my parents and my aunt and uncle have done a great job at passing those same values down to their kids, and we're working to do the same with our kids. I will always associate July 4th with his birthday. I'm always hoping that every July 4th, regardless of what I'm doing, it's a day that I can remember him and think about him on his birthday. I'll always remember my grandpa being ahead of the curve with technology, especially when I look at my other grandparents and some other people of his generation. He always had the newest computer, the newest Mac, and his downstairs had a whole variety of gadgets, including his ham radio. My grandpa had the same cars forever, and I loved his cars. They were a 1998 Maxima, and he kept it in great condition. I kind of always hoped that I would get it, but there was no room for it, unfortunately. Since then, I've always liked the Nissan Maximas, and that was always a fun thing to talk to him about. My grandpa helped me with my Eagle Scout project, which we designed sensory boards for special education school where my brother went. And my grandpa was in his 70s when he helped design the blueprints for this. And I remember going to his house and him putting it up on graph paper, and it was very impressive. I'm only hoping that I can keep being as sharp as I am, as he was that late in my life. I'm really proud of my grandpa for fighting hard until the end. I know it was hard for him, and it was easy to want to give up and not keep fighting. But throughout my whole life, he never really let on that anything was ever wrong. He was always kept it really close to the chest and never wanted to let his grandkids know that anything was wrong, and that was to the end. So anything that happened to him in the last week, I really heard through my aunt and uncle and my dad, because he wouldn't complain, and when I went in to visit him, he kept a positive attitude. That's something I'll always remember, and I think he should know that he should be proud of himself for fighting until the end and for trying to do whatever it takes to keep living, and that he went out on top, and I love him. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin and Jennifer, for your beautiful reflections, and I'm glad that you brought in his beloved ham radio, because we all know that that was a huge, huge thing for him, although he still always loved you as his grandchildren more than his ham radio. His children, I'm not so sure, but definitely grandchildren. And now we're going to call upon Rachel to come forward to share some reflections about her grandfather.
Thank you for being here and for your support. We have been so unbelievably fortunate. We have the extraordinary privilege of saying we got to know our grandfather as adults, which isn't common. He believed firmly that without creativity, there was no innovation and no growth. He believed creativity was key to a person's success, not just in their career, but in your life. My grandpa and I played this game where he'd draw a squiggle shape on a napkin, scratch paper, the back of a crumpled receipt in his pocket, anything really, and he would start to draw, but then pass the paper to you and ask, "What do you see? And what can you create from it?" You would connect the lines and try to make something new, but the game wasn't over. He would take the paper back and rotate it until he could make something new from your drawing. And this would continue back and forth until the napkin or paper would literally rip. And if these new challenges became fun, he'd tell me, "Rach, go get another napkin." This game was a learning exercise about how he wanted us to live life. All of the games he played with us growing up and into adulthood were instructions showing us how creative thinking could impact your life and those around you. He intentionally put all of his favorite artworks in the bathroom and hung them like a French salon-style gallery, or so he would tell me, and everyone then would be exposed to art. Art was a space to ask questions and think creatively. You might not have time to go to the museums regularly, but he would tell you that if you're not a robot, you do regularly go to the bathroom. I admired this thought process where he's always trying to expose his loved ones to creative thinking situations, showing us you can always create something good from a challenging situation if you look at it from a different perspective. You just have to be willing to rotate the piece of paper. And if you're out of options, you find comedy in it. Grandpa loved dad jokes. He loved to laugh, or at least shout, "Ha!" at you, keeping you on your toes. He loved to watch John Wick movies and shark-themed TV shows and movies. He loved that people in those films would always run out of options. That the movie should be over, but then there'd be a plot twist and the movie would find a way to continue. On our Sundays together, we would watch these movies and tell jokes. He'd tell us his war stories and share his wealth of knowledge, which include things like how pennies were originally made, or reminding us frequently you could have bought a plane from a Sears catalog. He had a copy of that catalog, and sure enough, there were planes in it. And he loved laughing at the odd names for medicines in the catalog and the way they described medical conditions and symptoms. He could find comedy in anything and anywhere. His life is our proof that your laugh and your small, sarcastic, sassy joke can be a light in someone's difficult circumstance. A lifeline to a new piece of paper, to new perspectives, to options. Laughter is so important. Grandpa would sit at family gatherings and smile at us all shouting over one another and laughing, and it brought him so much joy. So I ask that you laugh when you remember him and keep being a lifeline for people, because that's the legacy he would have wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, for these beautiful reflections. And now we're going to call upon Hannah to come forward as well.
Hello, I am Hannah, Richard's youngest grandchild. Thank you for all being here and listening to us share some of our greatest memories with you. It means a lot. I feel very blessed to have a close and loving relationship with my grandpa. He was a very compassionate, positive, loving, and accepting person, and we've shared a lot. We both have love for animals. Grandpa had loved 3 dogs that he had during his lifetime: Bailey, Babs, and Pebbles. He also had fun with their bird Missile. He had curiosity for learning about other animals in the extended family, including my rabbit named Chance. When Grandpa would come over for Sunday dinners to our house, he always knew he would have a furry friend by his side. Both Sawyer, my sister's miniature schnauzer, and my dog Cora would wait to see when he would share his snacks or maybe even some of his dinner. When Grandpa rescued Bailey and Babs, he knew he would come home to a friend who was always happy to see him. We bonded over our love for animals and traded stories when I would drive him back home on Sundays after a delicious supper. We often talked about our dogs and as the most loyal companions we could ever have. During his last couple of hospitalizations, I brought him some blankets for him to use because his room would get cold during the night. With his colorful beagle blanket and his outgoing personality, he quickly became a favorite patient of the nurses and the assistants at the Advocate Condo. I proudly wear the title of Grandpa's blanket hero. Grandpa Richard, I will always remember you in my heart and will miss you each and every day.
Thank you, Hannah and Rachel. These beautiful memories you share, they help us to do what we are here to do, to begin letting go of how he's left us and to remind us of how he's lived and to take those memories into our hearts. And now we're going to call upon Max to share some words of reflection and of love.
Hi, everyone. My name is Max Powell, and I'm honored to be one of Richard's grandsons. Thank you all for coming today. Above everything else, my grandpa was a very kind, decent, and talented man. No matter what I was doing growing up, going to college, and in my professional career, he always genuinely showed that he cared about me and my brother and our cousins. He was a great example of how to be a husband and a father and a grandfather. When I met my now wife, Carolyn, he immediately made her feel welcome and part of our family, which is something she will never forget. In addition to all the lessons he taught us, his legacy lives on in the incredible dollhouses he built for our two daughters, who play with them every day and love to let us know that they came from great-grandpa Richard. They loved FaceTiming him and talking about their day, their activities, and the dollhouse, and he had a way of making them feel like the most special toddlers in the world that they will always remember and appreciate. Grandpa Richard was always humble about his achievements, but he was an extremely talented man, excellent in both creative and technical skills. While I definitely did not inherit his artistic skills, I did inherit his love for the Chicago Cubs. From watching games with Grandpa, I was able to learn about baseball as well as how to overcome regular disappointment until the Cubs finally won in 2016. With apologies to Aunt Kim and her family, I'm sure Grandpa would have been thrilled to know that in his last game, the Cubs came back to beat the St. Louis Cardinals with 2 outs in the 9th. And for Dansby Swanson to get a hit, we know that there was some divine intervention at play. Grandpa showed us all what a successful life looks like, and nowhere is it better reflected than in how much his children and grandchildren respected and cared for him. Our lives are infinitely better for having known him, and I will forever be proud to be his grandson. Thank you for everything, Grandpa.
Thank you, Max, for sharing and for also helping me to understand, because I was at that game, and now I know why they were able to pull it off. Thank you. And now we're going to call upon Zach to come forward.
Thank you all for coming here today to celebrate the wonderful and fulfilled life of my grandpa Richard. My grandpa was a creator in every sense of the word. He created ham radios out of spare Army surplus parts. He created and patented 72 inventions over the course of his career as an inventor and industrial designer. And he created a huge, loving, and unbreakable family with the love of his life, Joan. As a war veteran, an inventor, an artist, and a prolific industrial designer, Grandpa was the ultimate Renaissance man. Among his many titles and achievements, the one that most truly defined him was his role of our family patriarch. He was the father of our family. First, to be specific, he was the father to my uncles Randy and Dale and my mother Sharon. And he and my grandma raised them in a house full of laugh and love, and he modeled what it meant to be a great parent, a great spouse, and a great provider. And not only was he a great father to his children, but to their spouses as well. And not only was he a wonderful grandfather to us, but to our spouses as well. He had seemingly endless joy and enthusiasm for our rapidly growing family. He had over 50 years of a happy marriage, and his children have combined for over 100 years of happy marriages, and hopefully us grandchildren can make it 200 years. He's given us the blueprint, his 73rd patent, if you will. Be kind, be patient, be generous, be adventurous, and most importantly, listen to your wife. I'm going to borrow a phrase from our Passover Seder that we use to thank God for each of his many gifts. Dayenu. It would have been enough. If he was just a brother and a son and a nephew and a cousin that loved and cherished his family until their final days, Dayenu. If he was just a husband that was a loyal and loving spouse that bought diamonds for his wife because he loved her and not because he was sorry, Dayenu. If he was just a father that filled his children's lives with unconditional love and endless laughter and joy, Dayenu. If he was just a grandfather that was proud of everything we did and supportive of all of our hopes and dreams, Dayenu. And if he was just a great-grandfather that played with our children when he barely had the strength or built them doll houses even though it hurt his hands to do it, Dayenu. For each of the many roles he played, lessons he taught, and gifts he gave us, we say, Dayenu. I'll end with a quote from our Torah given by King Solomon about the meaning of our time on earth. I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift from God. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zach, and to all of Richard's grandchildren, what an incredible tribute to know that you all knew him so well, to know that he impacted you so deeply, and for each of you to speak so lovingly and so full of depth. It's I can't imagine a better tribute. So thank you for lifting up his memory for all of us today. And now we're going to call upon Randy Sylvan to come and speak on behalf of his siblings. So we're going to invite them to join up here.
Thank you. So after listening to my kids,
That's why the reserves are here.
yeah, so after listening to my kids and my nieces and nephews, truly I got nothing. So if you hear many repeats, I'm really sorry, because they did such a great tribute that I have most of this. So on behalf of my brother Dale, his wife Kim, my sister Sharon and her husband Mike, myself, my wife Edie, grandkids, Justin, Alyssa, Jen, Ryan, Jason, Rachel, Patrick, Hannah, Max, Carolyn, Zach, and Jackie, and the great-grandchildren, Cole, Luke, Dylan, Madison, Natalie, Avery, Violet. Thank you all for coming to celebrate and honor Dad, Grandpa, and Great-Grandpa. There's so many moments we shared, but we just want to talk about a few. No particular order and many repeats, as it turns out. My sister-in-law, Kim, said, Dad should replace the most interesting man in the world in the commercials, like Rabbi said before, because he truly, everyone he met loved him and he took a genuine interest in their lives. He would talk to anyone, literally. And I think my son Justin inherited that same thing. On one of their world trips, Dad told us he met these guys in the airport. He said they had all different colored hair. He struck up a conversation with them. He said they were some kind of rock band. and said, I asked if they knew who we were. He goes, yeah, I don't really know them. They were some band called The Clash. So my father was talking to anybody. He loved sharing stories about as a kid, and with people he knew. He remembered interesting details, and he would, like my family has said, he was creatively shared them. Even some of his new friends at Brookdale, enjoyed listening to his stories. He had a deep love and support for Mom and the three of us. They supported all the activities we were involved in. They would not only when we were kids, but throughout our adult lives as well. They loved watching baseball games, ice shows, plays, hearing about our careers. Dad loved taking videos. Well, they weren't videos, they were Super 8 movies back then. And videos of us in action, and we still look at those today. We took many vacations as kids, stuffed in the car, the three of us, mostly to Florida, with and without air conditioning. So before there was air conditioning in our car, and we always would be happy to get to our destination. The three of us jammed in the back seat with the smoke burning our eyes out in the back seat. But we always had a lot of fun together through getting out of the Chicago cold winters. As our families have gotten bigger, Dad's grandkids and great-grandkids would light him up whenever they came to visit and chat. He was proud of them all, loving to hear about every one of their successes. He loved telling everybody who would listen all about them, and he would take out his phone to share pictures, especially what was the app that Photo Circle. That was his favorite. He would tell me, here's all the new pictures I saw today. I can go on about the dollhouses, but everybody has spoken about those, but he was building them all the way till the end, to the last granddaughter, great-granddaughter. He had a lot of customizing that he would do. He had little mini picture frames, a TV with the Cubs game playing, even a grandfather clock signifying it was from Grandpa or great-grandpa Richard who built it. Each house was different from the next. All had special plaque making it the family keepsake. If he didn't like something in the instructions, he would get a hold of the company and tell them his suggestions on how they might do it a little better. He always emphasized with us a strong work ethic and how to respect and treat other people. He was a designer by trade, studied at the Art Institute. We've talked about the number of patents that he's done, inspired Dale to become an engineer. Those skills helped me learn how to do projects around the house, how to prevent mistakes doing those projects, and led to my lifelong hobby of building models and trains. In our first home, I wanted to put in a dehumidifier by myself back in the 80s, and you have to cut a hole in the furnace, and my dad said, well, just make sure you don't cut the hole too big, because you can always cut it bigger, but you can't make it smaller. It's hard to fix it if it gets too big. He was also a great resource for Sharon as she developed and fine-tuned her career in teaching. He was an amazing illustrator, always added a special touch to the envelopes of friends' birthday cards when we were kids, and even to our grandkids and to us, still to this day. It was so fun to bring a gift to a friend with one of his clever creations in hand, knowing it would bring a smile to everyone's faces. His unique cards were always a hit. He even designed a special Beware of Dorm Butt, I'm reading, a poster for Sharon's mini fridge in her freshman dorm room, and made everyone laugh each time somebody went to grab a tab out of there. Even a lot of ham radio operators became familiar with his illustrations when he, at 74 years old, he published a book of his own ham radio cartoons. And he always mentioned to me, he goes, you probably won't get them, it's only going to be a ham radio, the guy that would understand those. He would also help us get interesting summer jobs, usually working for companies he was designing for. We worked in the factory, usually so we could learn about hard work and how to deal with different type of people. He really taught us that we needed to work for the things that we wanted. One of the greatest skills Dad taught us was not to give up or be afraid of taking risk. He would take us out for hundreds of hours of practicing our driving. His rule was, you might be old enough to get your license, but you're not going to get it until I say it's time. And so we would practice at the Springman School across the street from our house. He took us out in the horrible weather, to make sure we could handle those conditions. And then once, when we were kids, he bought us a stick shift and said, well, you guys are going to learn to drive it. I think Sharon was too young to drive. And he said, were we to use his car? Oh, no, we're not using the new car. He went out and rented one. So he took Dale and I across the street and said, okay, you guys learn to drive this. He taught us the basics and said, don't come back until you can drive it. And actually, Edie and I wound up buying that car later down the road. While he was encouraging and looked calm, he had to be scared. Sharon shared one time, after only having her license for a month or two, she was out driving during a blizzard and skidded into the middle of a neighbor's lawn. After about 10 seconds of trying to get out, she abandoned the car, walked 4 blocks home, insisting she would never drive again. Dad wouldn't hear of it. He drove her back to the car, instructed her how to get out of the snow herself, insisting she drive home. He was always there to teach resilience and importance of not giving up. Good life lessons. Dale shared the memories of going with Dad to his office downtown when we were kids on Saturdays, working on a drafting board. Dale was wearing a tie and drinking coffee. Then afterwards, Dale and I would walk across the street and go to Dad's alma mater, the Art Institute, and look and learn and appreciate artwork. The funny thing is, we were probably 10 and 7 years old, and we were crossing Michigan Avenue by ourselves. Okay, you wouldn't see that anymore. Dad, as you saw by the military, had a strong love for country and military service in the Navy. He was very proud of that. He told us a story one time, which I just threw in because I thought it was funny. They sent him over from his ship on Thanksgiving to go get turkeys. And so he said he got to the ship, the freezers are in the floor of the supply ships, and the turkeys were from World War II. Okay, so this was the Korean War. So they were 7 or 8 years old. He said they had been deep frozen for that time. He spent endless hours watching YouTube military videos, which is a for sure, all day long, in telling us about all the different aircraft. Then Dale would tell him about the latest technologies and how the latest technology replacing those. Back when the Naval Air Station existed, we would park on Willow Road and watch all the military aircraft land, and for many years we went to the annual air show there. Another cherished memory from Sharon was the annual daddy-daughter dinners. So special. For several weeks leading up to the event, he would sing catchy songs, daddy-daughter song, which he invented for the occasion to build up excitement for their special time together. I could tell you some other songs he said, but probably not the appropriate time. He was always quick to create these cute little songs, including one for one of her very first friends in kindergarten. Even recently, when he heard her name, he would burst into smile and break into that same song. Dad loved his ham radio, as you've heard. He's been active since he was 14 years old. We would sit with him downstairs as kids as he communicated across the globe using Morse code, which he was still using till the end. I remember he would have, back in those days before the new TVs, he would have to go put filters on all the neighbors' television sets because his radio would interfere with their TV and wreck the picture and come through the sound. And I could be sitting in my bedroom and I would hear his communications coming through the stereo, except the stereo was off. And near the end of his life, Dad and Dale worked with the Brookdale staff to install his ham radio antenna on the roof. In fact, it was our selling point to him to move was that, they do that for him when we encouraged him to move closer to us. He said that was the reason, the Morse code, because he only used, in the later years, only used Morse code, and he said that's the reason that he stayed as sharp as he was. He kept detailed logbooks documenting everybody he talked to. Everybody remembers.
You got this.
Yeah. His license plate's W9CBT, which he hung on the garage and now hang in, I think, in Dale's garage now.
Yeah.
They're hanging in Dale's garage, all of them going back how many years?
Well, when they were doing the plates, it was 71.
Okay, so,
71.
and they were long before that. It was his passion. He loved sharing it with others. He even went to Sharon's classes several times, teaching the kids Morse code and captivating them with his stories. He always hoped one of us would follow in his footsteps. Never happened. I actually tried during the pandemic because you don't have to learn the Morse code anymore. And when the pandemic is over, so is my studying. Still, it brought all of us joy watching him broadcast as recently as a couple weeks ago. He taught us the importance of having hobbies and passions, and he was the very few people who took her seriously when, at 59, she decided to take up the drums. He loved watching videos of her drumming, although he wasn't impressed with AC/DC, and he much preferred listening to jazz. Dale worked with Dad as his personal IT support. You've heard how technological he was. He would have Dale double-check everything. He was very proud of his most recent iPhone 15 and his ability to monitor his blood sugar with his new Freestyle Libre. He had Macs, PCs, iPhones, flip phones, Fire tablets, Facebook, streaming services, Fitbit, Photo Circle, and anything else he could get his hands on. He loved FaceTime, YouTube, and he was pretty techie, really, for a guy 93 years old. He appreciated the three of us and the fact that he was able to see all of us retire and could spend more quality time with him. We all became his primary caregivers. Assisting in his living is a pretty big job. Cynthia, who is here, we want to thank her for everything she's done. He appreciated the help and frequently commented how lucky he was to have so much support, including from his beloved Bailey. Many times he showed how he appreciated all our skill sets. If something needed to be hung on a wall or needed fixing, the only one that could do it was Dale. If it was a financial thing, it was me. And if it had anything to do with snacks, particularly popsicles, fudgicles, his favorite, or dark chocolate-covered almonds, she was involved. Dale and Kim enjoyed Dad, and all the kids enjoyed Dad coming over Sundays with their kids and listening to his many stories about the service and many other things he knew about. He would always ask about my golf game, how'd the tournament go, what my latest handicap number was. He and Dale and I would play quite a bit of golf together when we were kids, and he said how much he missed playing due to his injuries that wouldn't let him play anymore. Although a year or so ago, I did get him out chipping, and he tried, and he enjoyed it. He certainly loved the dogs that you heard about. You heard about Babs and Bailey and Pebbles and the bird, Missile. So Missile would escape from the cage at home, knew how to push the food out, but he took one of our electric toy cars and put a perch on it. And so she would ride the back and forth, but she did smoke. So she would be smoking while she was riding the perch. He loved the beloved Cubs, and he and my mom went many years to Scottsdale to catch spring training, visit family that we have there. He was very excited when the Cubs won the World Series. So when my mom passed away in 2011, Dad decided it was time to learn to cook when he was 80. He had a strong passion for trying to figure out how things work. He experimented with the air fryer, believe it or not, tweaked his recipes, and also loved to grill. He was always curious how we would cook things. I'm getting near the end, so the part's going to be the worst. He was always curious on how to cook things, and he frequently texted Sharon for his creations. I'll drink first.
Yeah,
Yeah, probably a good idea.
you're so close.
So, although we did want to spend more time with him, he did pass peacefully and is now truly home with our mom. Dad, as you used to say when we were kids, you're off like a can you say it? You're off like a dirty shirt. I got it. And one of my grandsons has had many derivatives of that. Not all good. And as the ham radio operators say, 73s and Godspeed. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just leave this up here till.
With all of these incredible memories swirling in our hearts now, we take a moment also to acknowledge that the three of you shared how blessed you were to be able to be with him in these final years, taking care of him these final months, to spend this incredible quality time with him. And as much as you were honored to do so, you gave him something incredible, something that he was so appreciative of. And he also so cherished that time with you, the way that you took care of him and honored him. It was an incredible gift. And so, on behalf of all of your family, we say thank you. There's a poet, Christina Georgina Rossetti, who writes, "Miss me, but let me go. When I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not too long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the love that we once shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this is a journey that we all must take, and each must go alone. It's all part of a bigger plan, a step on the road to home. So when you are lonely and sick of heart, go to those we know and bury your sorrows in doing good deeds. Miss me, but let me go." And that is something he would certainly want for all of you. Yes, to be missed, but not with heaviness. He spent so much of his life dedicated to providing for his family what he didn't always have for himself. Growing up, he moved again and again so often that he learned how to enroll himself in school. And this led to him creating a stable home, a place where he could live for decades in the same place, not having to move, not just to provide this stability for himself, but to do so for him, for his children, for his grandchildren. As we said, he was always trying to think about how he could make things better for others and better for you. And how blessed to be able to grow up in a household with somebody who was designing toys and going to be able to go to his workshop and play with those toys. When he reflected that growing up he would be able to play with molten lead. He was an incredible person who didn't bemoan the things that he didn't have. Rather, he worked hard to make something better for himself, but for others. He met his beloved Joan when her brother Marvin introduced them. They married when she was 18, while he was getting close to coming out of the military. And they spent an incredible 58 years together of love and of partnership. The two of them created this space for you to grow and to be that person that all of his grandchildren have reflected upon. You shared so many of the life lessons that he taught you, but he didn't teach you just by telling you. He taught you by living, by showing you. He lived with integrity. In fact, you reflected that at one point he had a motorcycle. And when you talked about riding a motorcycle, he said, not a chance. Not only that, but he got rid of his own motorcycle, saying, if you can't ride it, I can't ride it. He taught you how to treat others, how to work hard, as you said, how to be nice to people, and how to see the best that there can be around you. He loved his family, and he loved his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren. That was his everything. As proud as he was of all of those patents, as proud as he was of being able to really impact the world around us, even discovering that one of his patents was on one of the instruments that he had at the at the Brookdale home. He was always proudest of you. And so as we come to this time where we have to say goodbye, we miss him, we let him go, but we take him with us. As poet Merritt Molloy has written, you can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, by allowing children to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. And this is now our legacy, to love one another the way he loved us, and to give that love away openly, and whenever we see things that remind us of him, when we hear jazz on the radio, when we see a homemade dollhouse, when we see an old car, we remember him, and we allow his love to be a part of us always. May his memory be a blessing, and let us say, Amen. And it's at this time that I invite you to rise together as a community as we honor him with these words of El Malei Rachamim, the prayer that we say to ask for his soul's protection under the shadow of God's wings.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamamim, Hamseim Lachana, Tachad Kanfei Hashchiena, Ma'alot Kedushim U'Turim, Kizohar Harakim Azahirim, Et Nishmat Yeshua Ben Rosh, Sheharak Le'ulamo, Le'ulamo, Harachamim, Nyastirecho b'seitek kenafav le'olamim, v'yitzroi b'yitzroi, ha'im et nishmato, Adonai hu nachato, v'yirnuach b'shalom, b'shalom al mishkavo, v'numar Amen. And we'll read together the English that we find on the first page of our pamphlet. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Richard Sylvan, who is gone unto eternity. God of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. Amen.
Please be seated.
Friends, this concludes the services here at the chapel. The interment and burial service will continue at Shalom Memorial Park in Arlington Heights. For those of you traveling with us to the cemetery, please do keep the following safety precautions in mind. Please make sure that your bright headlights and your four-way hazard flashers are on at all times. Please be sure to obtain an orange funeral safety sticker for your windshield, and we will be providing several of the cars in the procession with a magnetic orange flag to be placed on top of your car. Please travel as close as safety permits to the car in front of you to avoid any gaps in our procession. And for your own safety and security, I would suggest not speaking or texting while driving, or Morse coding while driving from here to the cemetery. That was for him. Right? Following the interment, the family will be coming together for Shiva at Congregation Or Shalom at 21 Hawthorne Parkway. They'll be together as they return from the cemetery until 8 p.m. this evening. The family has also requested any memorial contributions in his memory to either the American Diabetes Association, American Cancer Society, or to Special Gifts Theater. That information is available in the service folder that you should have received when you came in. If not, we have those for you as you leave. And for those of you joining us online, that information is available on our website. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the casket, the family, and the clergy from the chapel. And we're asking for the grandchildren to please come forward to serve as pallbearers as we escort the casket from the chapel.
עושה שלום ממרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
Thank you all for being here. We invite those who are coming to the graveside to make your way to your cars now. Have a blessed day.